Hey, how's it going, beautiful people? Josh, pleasure to be seeing you, pleasure to be speaking with you on the interwebs. So, the purpose of this video today is to help you look at insurance, life insurance, mortgage protection, final expense, IULs, whole life, term life. The history goes on and on and on and on and on of insurance a little bit differently today. My job is to show you, to the best of my ability, the history and the breakdown of what insurance even is from what I consider the core of my being and something I believe that most people should know. We will look at today insurance at a biblical lens and pretty much what that means for you and what that means for me. What we will be doing today is we'll be looking at different, scriptures from the Bible. We'll be looking at different patriarchs in the Bible, looking at different people in the Bible, and see how they use the idea of what is considered insurance to continue their legacy. So without further ado, let's dive into it a little bit. So get my screen back up real quick. So the first patriarch, or the first biblical member that I actually want to speak about today, you all know him, or you should, if you went to church on a weekend like I did, every day since you popped out your mama's womb till all the way till like mid-20s or something like that. You should know. So the first person that I'll be speaking about today is the wonderful, beautiful, everlasting patriarch Abram, otherwise known as Abraham. And so this story that we have here, everyone should know it. Abraham bought a cave. What does that even mean? We're talking about insurance. We're talking about Abraham buying a cave. Come on, brother, get to it. I'm about to. Let's join me. So you see right here, at Hebron, Abraham purchased the cave Machpelah, okay, as a burial place for his wife, Sarah, from Ekron the Hittite. If you want to look up this story, it's in Genesis chapter 23. Brother, I tell you, sister, I tell you, the Most High God left so many gems in Genesis that if you didn't get past the book of Genesis, you might be all right. But back to the story. So this became a family sepulcher. That's a very important word. Very important word, sepulcher. According to the tradition, Abram, Isaac, and Jacob, with their wives, Sarah, Rebecca, and Leah, were buried in the cave after their deaths. So that's a nice way to introduce the story and what I actually want to speak to you guys actually about. Because, we're talking about caves, we're talking about people being buried. What does that even matter? It matters simply because of this. You, as an adult, as a biblical adult, or someone who wants knowledge or information or anything like that, should realize this tenet of scripture. A righteous man leaves an inheritance for his children. So what does that mean? For too long, we as a people, we as a generation, we as humanity, whatever you want to say, have been passing down our generational curses and not generational affluence. Now, if Abraham was able to purchase a cave, that means he was able to pass down an inheritance in other things as well. Because if you can take care of the thing or the things that are promised to every single man, every single woman, every single person, whether of height, gender, race, whatever you want to say, if you can promise to take care of that, you are doing what you're supposed to do. But unfortunately, we live in a society where we don't pass down inheritance, we pass down debts. Abraham didn't do that. Abraham purchased a cave, and from that cave in which he purchased, he set up his genuine family line forever. So before I go too deep, I do want to dive into this word sepulture real quick. The history of sepulture is a grave tale. The earliest evidence of our files traces sepulture, also spelled sepulture, back to the Middle English around the beginning of the 13th century. It was originally spelled sepulchre, as was Anglo-French, like many words borrowed into English from French. Sepulture has roots buried in Latin. In this case, the root is sepulere, a verb meaning to bury. Right? So the reason I brought it up is because there's part of insurance nowadays called final expense, right? So what is final expense insurance? final expense insurance is usually brought over to or marketed to older folks, to older people that, you know, are in their golden years, let's call it what it is, and they are looking to not pass down any debt or any generational disease or any financial hardships upon their descendants. Pretty much what Abraham did 300 some odd BCs, like years ago. I know I didn't say that right, but whatever. Like he did so long ago, because that spirit that's within all of us to take care of our descendants was the same spirit that Abraham had. The same spirit that people who take in and they want final expense insurance so that they have a burial set up, so that they have a nest egg set up for themselves if they were to surpass the time that they think they might die, because final expense insurance is considered whole life insurance, right? Now, the quote unquote face amount or death benefit, whatever you might want to call it, it isn't as much as maybe a regular whole life policy might be, or even a term life policy might be. However, most people that get it, they're not thinking that they're going to live forever. And so most times it's maybe about 35K, 25K, 15K, maybe even 10K, sometimes in some few cases, maybe even 5K. However, the point of the death benefit is to make sure that the burial expense is taken care of, and any single thing that might arise out of the death of that family member, and they're taking care of them while they pass on to the next generations, or whatever you might want to say, is taken care of, so they're not passing on that financial hardship upon their families. So if Abraham did it, and it's good enough for our father Abraham, then it should be good enough for us. So in this biblical story in Genesis chapter 23, we see the first example of what it means to take care of your final expense, right? But it doesn't stop there. You know, in the Bible, it gets real juicy about different stories about insurance that most people actually aren't even thinking about, but there's even more evidence that's even actually there. So I do want to move to a story that we all have heard of, or should have heard of, by the name of the story of the talents. And we all heard of it, the rich ruler that went out and he gave 10 talents, he gave 5 talents to one, he gave 2 talents to the other, and then to one servant he gave 1 talent. But let's look at this story from a different angle to bring out and ascertain some more information for us to understand. So we go over, come on now, flip. There we go. So we go over to Matthew chapter 25, verses 14 through 30. Okay? So I'll read it for you. For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants, right, and entrusted them to his property, right? This word property, as we know in the Bible, we're all God's property, right? And so this rich ruler is being juxtaposed, in a sense, I'm not saying that he is, but in a sense, to the Heavenly Father, right? To God. And so we are God's property. And as, you know, like the ancient men of the past were prophets, kings, rulers of the nation of Israel, they were considered in a sense, a shepherd of the people of Israel. And so they were given rulership over the property, the chief property of the Heavenly Father, i.e. his people, right? His believers, right? And so, and entrusted them his property. To one, he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, right? He who had received the 5 talents went out at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. But he who had received, so also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now, after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here, I have 5 talents more. His master said to him, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little, and I will set you over much. Enter into joy of our master." And he also, who had the 2 talents, came forward, saying, "Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here I have made 2 talents more." His master said to him, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of our master." He also, who had received the 1 talent, came forward, saying, "Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid and went and hid your talent in the ground. Here, you have what is yours." But his master answered him, "You wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown, gather where I scatter no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest." Okay, so how does this all make sense? All right, because we're seeing the essence of what it means to actually invest your money and be a good steward over investments, right? Because a lot of folks think, a lot of folks think that they have a 401k, they have a Roth IRA, which may be a little bit better. They have some type of qualified or either non-qualified savings plan, and they think that's all that they need. When it comes down to it, if you want your money to grow, you need your money to grow like how the banks grow their money. And so that's a good segue into what I'm actually going to speak about to you guys right now, which has been the darling of the insurance industry for, I'd say, the last, well, it's been around for 20 some years, but it's become the darling of the insurance industry for about the last 3 years, which is actually an index universal life policy. Now, what are those? It's a way that you can, it's pretty much like a financial utility knife or a financial Swiss Army knife, whichever one you want to actually say. People use these policies pretty much like how a bank would use your money. So instead of putting all your money into a bank account, what well-to-do people do is that they put their money, instead of putting their money in a 401k or in a bank account, they put their money in these index universal life policies. Now, what does it mean to actually index your money? Indexing your money means that you are putting your money based on an index that is governed by the financial overseers or overlords, whatever you want to say. And so pretty much, whether it's Mutual of Omaha, Emeritus, FNG, these are all good ones, like whichever one you go with, the concept is still the same. So they either put their money in the S&P 500 or in the BNP Paribas or whichever financial index is out there, and they use the growth of the financial index to allow the money that is within your cash account to accrue interest. And so they give you back the interest, some uncapped. Most of them do have a cap. So most of them, they have a cap maybe around 10, 12, 15%, something like that. But some of them have like trailblazing products where there is no cap on whatever they do. So not only does it have the ability to grow your money for you, but it grows that money tax-free. Not only does it blow your 401k out of the water, because your 401k does not have one main thing that actually makes your money worth having, because it doesn't have liquidity. If you're below 59.5, you're going to pay a penalty if you pull your money out. And sometimes, in some cases, you might even pay a tax on that as well. So some people might say, well, I have 50K in a 401k. When it comes down to it, if you're 59.5 and you pull it out before that time actually comes, it might be 35K. It happens to a lot of people. They have to pay that tax and pay that penalty. And sometimes the money that they think they have, they actually don't have. And so instead of you just putting your money, burying your money, instead of simply just burying your money, you actually have the ability to grow your money with an index universal life policy or a whole life policy. Whole life policies usually have a return of about 4%, usually. But whole life policies also give you dividends. They also give you the same banking principles that the index universal life policy does, but the whole life policy, also does it as well. The whole life policy has just been around, pretty much since the beginning of insurance. Index universal life policies, I believe, came around in the 1990s, in late 90s, early 2000s. That's when, or maybe, no, universal life policies came about in the 80s. Index universal life policies came around in the late 1990s. And so either if it's a whole life policy or an index universal life policy, you still have the ability to let your money gain interest, to be your own bank, and to have liquidity with the funds that you put inside of it. So that's why it's become a darling of the financial industry. Not only does it give you insurance, it gives you all three of those things as well, while also giving the ability to save for your child's future, to save for your retirement, and to give financial stability and also establish you a legacy. Having an insurance policy is the quickest way to establish a legacy for yourself. A lot of people, they work hard their entire life, they save up, and then they put their money either in a will, or if they know what they're doing, they put their money in a trust. Having an insurance policy, either a whole life or index universal life policy, or a universal life policy, all three of them are considered permanent insurance. So for the entirety of your life, you know that when the good Lord decides to call you back, your family is going to be set for the rest of their lives. So having an insurance policy is the quickest way to establish a legacy for yourself. Now, as I said, legacy, I actually want to dive into another platform that I have for myself. I want to talk about Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verses 1 through 6, and also Luke chapter 12, verse 33 through 34. So let's dive into Ecclesiastes real quick. So, as we see right here, in Ecclesiastes, it says, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Give a portion to 7, or to even 8. For you know not what disaster may happen on earth. If clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth. And if tree falls to the south or to the north, and the place where the tree falls, there will it lie. He who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the clouds will not reap. As you do not know the way the spirit comes to the bones in the womb of a woman with child, so you do not know the work of God who makes everything. In the morning sow your seed, and at evening withhold not your hand, for you do not know which will prosper, this or that, or whether both alike will be good." So you may know someone that is, scared of the financial market, or someone who lets fear completely cripple whatever decision that they want to make. That is not biblical. It's not. Because you know that the financial markets are unstable, because you know that if you walk outside, there's anything that might happen to you, that's why you sow. That's why. Because you know that there's anything that might be out there that might be coming after your money, that's why you sow, to be able to reap. Most people, when bad things begin to happen to them, they start curling up. That's not an astute financial investor or astute financial planner or an astute business owner does with their money, right? Because we know that there's a storm coming, we put our money to work to help protect us when that storm comes, right? Now, obviously, as believers, we know that the money itself is not going to be our protection. The protection comes from the one who gave us the money. Understand? But when we follow his principles and don't hide what he gave us, but invest what he gave us, that's when our money begins to grow. And if you're financially astute, most people, they put their money in these index or in these whole life policies, or they just get a regular term policy, if anything that might happen to them, whether it's cancer, ALS, Alzheimer's, any critical or chronic illness, or maybe a terminal illness, unfortunately, happens to everybody nowadays. Death and taxes are the only two things that are promised to every single man, woman, child, whoever it may be. It's promised to you. But only life insurance or insurance period is the only thing that helps mitigate the damages that it may cause to you. Understand? So do not withhold the grain, because when you withhold the grain, people will curse you. Okay? So with that being said, hope you guys get the point. We'll move on to our last chapter, or last precept or verse for right now. Luke chapter 12, verse 33 through 34. So this is something that I want to leave you guys with to understand the basis of what insurance actually is. It means to leave a legacy. Period. Insurance is about establishing legacy. It's nothing else, nothing more but legacy. Whether you call it mortgage protection, whether you call it final expense, whether you call it an index universal life policy, whether you call it a whole life policy, whether you call it a term life policy, whatever policy you call it, if you're not talking about legacy, you're talking about the wrong thing. You know, we started with Abraham. Abraham's descendants benefited off of the cave that he bought generations before, right? The good sowers that we spoke about before, they benefited not just themselves, but the people around them benefited, because the rich man that left and gave his talents to his servants to go sow, he benefited because he invested in them, and they benefited because they invested in themselves. Now, what happened to the man who decided he was going to bury the talent? He got cursed out, and his money, his talent, was given to someone else, right? So everything that you do is all about establishing your legacy. As believers, we do not move scared, we do not move afraid. We establish legacy, because that's what Christ came down to help establish within us. That legacy for his kingdom to be established forever, right? So Luke chapter 12, verse 33 through 34. Sell your possessions and give to the needy. Provide yourselves with money bags that do not grow old, with a treasure in the heavens that does not fail, where no thief approaches and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Okay? So I leave this message, or I leave this video with this message. It's time to start investing in yourself. It's time to start moving forward and start thinking about that legacy that you'll actually leave to your family. Because God has already told you, get your money bag. You know, put your treasures in heaven, in the idea of heaven, in the manifestation of heaven, where the moth will not get, right? Don't let the moth come into your mind and try to destroy your mind and take the things that he's already given towards you and take this away from you, because you are unfit or not brave enough to walk in the blessing in which he's giving you, right? So now it's time to move up. Now it's time to rise up. Thank you guys for listening to me for the last 25 minutes. I appreciate it. Hope you guys learned something, and see you guys soon. Can Life.